Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Don't forget to put your city and state in the chat for me. Hello, Dr. Cheri. You're on mute.
Hello, hello, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good, good, good. How's it been
Yes,
going?
it has been good. I'm might make a deadline today, so
That's always good. That is always good.
yes. So I have to do a couple of things when we get off, but we want to kind of get rolling here. Everybody, put your city and state in the chat. Thank you so much for being here. We are in for a treat as we usually are. Every quarter, we have the 10K economist herself, Dr. Cheri Phillips, in the house. And there's always a lot of economic information to talk
Yeah.
about. Jerome Powell and the Fed are meeting.
Yes.
There's a lot still happening with inflation. There's a lot happening with these student loans,
Yes.
and so much more. So I'm sure we are not going to be, Dr. Cheri never twiddles her thumbs and wonders what she's going to talk about because there's always a lot of information to share. So we want to say hello to Dana here from just saying good evening. We have Georgia in the house, Talisha. We've got Stephen from Georgia. We've got Tawana from DC. We got Dana from Alabama. We've got Sharnetta in New York. We have Kimberly from St. Louis, Essie from Texas, Lanisha from California, Jen from Colombia, but living in ATL. Oh, well, look, that's a little different. I thought you were really calling from Colombia, but we want to welcome you here anyway. Oh, you are. Okay, Colombia is in the house. ¿Cómo estás? Mark is here from Wichita. We have in YouTube, we got Jackie from Dallas and Crystal from Connecticut, and Talisha is also in Facebook saying hello to everybody there. We got Virginia here from Georgia. Welcome, 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 everybody. Continue to put your city and state in the chat. It's 6:03 though, so we're going to get started. Welcome to the 10K Project. We are the largest community of investors who not only actively fund Black-owned businesses, but also get together to learn how to invest in alternative assets. So whether you want to invest in real estate, tax lien, stock options, hotels, all sorts of investments, you are able to do that. I am working on a resource list for everybody, which should be out in the next few weeks. So pray for me that I can scurry up and get that done. But actually, I'm waiting on feedback from a couple of people, but we're going to have a ton of resources in there. So just to let you know, I'm working right now on this whole concept, and of course has been fleshed out over the past couple of years, that let's say you're broke today and you're 40. If you were to look at a retirement calculator, Dr. Cheri,
Mhm.
and you're 40 years old, it would tell you that if you intend to retire at 67 and you live to your mid 90s, like my people live to mid 90s, I would need $3 million.
Right.
I don't think I can save $3 million. So instead, what we're learning is we need to buy cash flow. So, how do we buy cash flow? That's what the resource list is going to be. Like, you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. You want to have different types of investments that you're getting into. How do you get the capital for it? All of those things. So that's what I am working for the community, and I'm super excited for that to come out in the next few weeks.
That
In the
sounds
meantime, if you want to become a member of the 10K Project, the10kproject.com. I'm sure Talisha, yes, is putting it in the chat for everybody. The10kproject.com. Bet on Black Pitch is tomorrow night. And we have another great Black founder that we want to hear their story, hear their information, and you are able to decide if you want to invest in that business. Oh, and because Miss Beverly is in Florida, first of all, we want to pray for everybody who is in Florida. But second, if you want to join the real estate mastermind, you still have a chance to, because we needed to push back the start of that class for 2 weeks. So the class is going to start on Wednesday, October 12th. You need to sign up by Friday. I know that I had a person email me today saying they still can't get into the Knowledge Center. So don't worry, I'm going to send you the link directly. But yes, Talicia's putting it in for the Grant Masterclass registration. Go to the10kproject.com/Beverly and you sign in and the instructions will pop up. If you are a member, it is $300 for you to participate in that for all 6 weeks. And in that instructions, you'll see what the different sessions are. We think that it is going to be really great. Not only do you get the 6 sessions, but you also get the year of mentoring as well as part of that package. If you are not a member, you will need to join the 10K project, but we have a coupon code. So that will be $200 for the year and then $300 for the masterclass. So again, all of those instructions are at the10kproject.com/Beverly. You enter your information and the instructions will pop up for you. So I see something in Q&A here. Kevin is asking, oh, okay. So actually, Dr. Cheri, I'm going to save that question for you.
Yeah, cover that up.
Sylvia's saying, yes, I still have technical issues. Sylvia, I thought I sent you the link to directly sign up for the class. So I hope you got that, but I'm still working with tech support. He's seeming to have some trouble figuring out why there's a disconnect. I thought I fixed it. So I'm still working with him, but I thought I sent you the Stripe directly so that you can sign up for that. And other than that, I don't have any other announcements. So we're going to get started. What's happening in this economy? What's happening in this economy? Lay it on us.
Listen, it's probably more what's not happening in this economy. We're going to talk tonight. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court. That today, at the time of this recording, today marks the first day of the new session. And there are some business-related cases that are going to be presented before the Supreme Court that will have some implications and definitely have a ripple effect, but will have some implications for us. The auto industry has finally started to embrace electricity. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about the economy overall, and this notion of recession versus bear market. And, you know, for those of us who have stocks and how we need to proceed going there. We're going to talk about the US dollar and some unintended consequences as a result of the interest rates going up and what it's done globally, and how that's going to, even though it's acting out, it's showing itself out globally, how that's going to impact us personally. Of course, we're going to talk about student loans, and we're going to also talk about repurposing commercial property, commercial real estate, and some opportunities that would exist there. So let's go ahead and get started. So first Monday in October, the first Monday in October is the new session for the Supreme Court. And if you did not already know, today was Justice Ketanji Brown's first day. So that was news in and of itself. But then some other news is what court cases are on the docket. Now, there are several that are making the news, and you'll see those in the evening news. But I wanted to put on your radar a couple of cases that are not necessarily in the news, but will be impactful nonetheless. And so the first one, there's two cases. One will challenge the constitutionality of the Federal Trade Commission, and another second case will challenge the constitutionality of the Securities Exchange Commission. Now, these two agencies, the Federal Trade Commission and the Securities and Exchange Commissions, are regulatory agencies that are their intent and their purpose is to regulate businesses so that consumers are not, it's a way of protecting consumers. And so from either illegal or unethical competitive practices, and then also from loss, and especially with regards to the stock market. So the first case, the first case that's being that's challenging the agencies has to do with the amount of time it takes for a corporation to file a lawsuit against file a lawsuit at the federal level. So when the Federal Trade Commission or the SEC goes in and investigates a business, and then they decide that that business is doing something illegal or unethical, and they tell them that they have to pay penalties, then that company can appeal. And typically the way they appeal is by going to court. They'll file a claim and go to court. And they go back and forth, possibly for years, and before it actually gets into the federal court system, which would lead it up to the Supreme Court. So let's say there's a company that's illegally dumping toxins into the water, or they're doing, I'm sorry, there's not that, that's EPA. FTC would be more like if you had, they're trying to determine whether or not two companies are coming together, and if they merge together, then it would create unfair competition and create problems for their customers and their clients. And so the FTC would then go to those two companies and say, no, you can't merge. And then they would appeal. And then there's the appellate process can take years before they can actually go to a court and say, hey, we're going to sue because we want to come together and form this, we want to merge and become one company. So this lawsuit that's claiming that the FTC and the SEC constitutionally cannot do what they're doing. And because they can't do it, then what it would do is shorten the time from the appeals process. It would shorten that time so that the company could eventually go ahead and sue so that they could get to their desired end goal. So if two companies wanted to merge, instead of it taking years, it might take, instead of it taking 5 years, it might take 18 months.
So why is that against the constitutionality of it versus it just being, we want to be able to sue faster? Like, I get the business case for it, but I don't understand, because to me, unconstitutional means it's illegal and that agency should be abolished. But that doesn't sound like what you're asking. You're saying they're asking.
That's why this is so important, because by making it a constitutional issue, mm-hmm. then the next step, the slippery slope, the next step would be, well, if the Supreme Court says that it's unconstitutional, then why do they exist? And if they don't, and then if there's no reason for them to exist because it's unconstitutional for them to mm-hmm. exist, then we do away with that agency, and then I can regulate myself. So it's a way.
That is dangerous. I know they've been trying to get rid of the Consumer Protection Agency. Exactly. They've been battling Elizabeth Warren for years. Mm-hmm. And I know that are also looking at or already set it up where corporations are people. So
Yes.
because of that, corporations now have human personhood rights that they did not have before. Because the court has swung conservative,
Yes.
what are we really expecting with that? Because I could see I could see really bad implications
Exactly.
with
Yes.
without those agencies,
Yes. Yes.
because FTCs ensure that are supposed to ensure that we don't have monopolies in this
Correct.
country.
Correct.
Right. So that
Correct.
was like, if people are old enough to remember Ma Bell, I was a little kid when my parents were talking about Ma Bell being split. Right. But Jen is saying it's removing oversight. And I'm gonna say this could be sinister because companies like she's saying Meta, Amazon, Microsoft. Yes,
Exactly.
you're absolutely right. So
The slippery slope, because if we
yes.
say that they're unconstitutional, then that's one step closer to they're not existing, which
Mhm.
which removes a layer of protection for consumers.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's the crux of the lawsuits, the two lawsuits that are being presented before the justices. One has to do with the use of body cams, the company that manufactures body
Mhm.
cameras, and then the other case is regarding um, an accountant. It is an accountant who had some issues with when she was. I've just lost my thought. So the accountant had done some malfeasance and was called on it. And because of that, she made the appeals, and they went back and forth. And so she's challenging on constitutionality because it took so long, and that process of taking so long, because it impacted her ability to
To
work
make money.
and to
Yeah.
make money.
And I mean, I can understand from a small business owner's point of view, but look, I think that there's more bad than good that could come from something like that, and the truth is a lot of big companies would ride on the small, it's through the small
Exactly.
business,
We'll use the small business.
Yes,
We'll use the
yeah,
small business to challenge it, and then
yes.
we'll
And
apply
then
it.
they get
That the
all of the
small business sets the
rewards.
precedence,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
who's really going to go up against the small business?
Well, especially, so I haven't heard of this story, but I know that oftentimes they will put these stories in for the court of public opinion before it actually goes, like they did with
Mhm.
the baker,
Mhm. Mhm. Yes.
and that was like a huge, like,
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I think he was even on The View,
Yes.
with regards to his case. So, yeah, that's an interesting case. I'm gonna have to keep up with that.
Yes, yes. Now there's two other cases, business related cases. One is whether is the courts will have to consider whether states can require corporations to agree to be sued in the state, that they're wanting to do business in. So you're setting up a corporation, and let's say I live in Tennessee. So if I want to set up a corporation, or as a company, I want to set up a corporation, or as a corporation, I want to do business in Tennessee, I would have to sign a waiver that would, in essence, I would agree to be sued in order for me to do business in Tennessee. And so, the case that's being presented is a gentleman who worked in one state, and that corporation had presence in 3 different states. And that gentleman became ill because of some toxic thing that the company, it was work related illnesses. And so he was trying to sue, and it made its way through the courts. And so now it is, the Supreme Court justice will now have to decide, should they grant powers to the state where the state can say, listen, if you are a corporation and you want to do business in our state, you've got to agree to be sued.
I mean, I can definitely see it working both ways as well, because if you have, so one of the reasons that a lot of people can't sue is because, like, we sign these terms of conditions, we don't know what we're signing, right? But I live in Maryland, and if the company is located in Washington, or if I have a problem with the company, I want to sue, but the company says you could only sue in arbitration in Washington, then I'm stuck as a consumer, versus if I'm able to go down the street and file my lawsuit. So I get that. I definitely get it. I do think, so let's put on the small business owner hat. I do think that as small business owners, if you're trying to do e-commerce or something like that, what kind of an impediment is that going to give to the small business owner? Because an Amazon could handle that. They've got the money for that, but does it stop the little guy or woman from being able to do business nationwide?
Exactly. And
I think it's interesting.
I think that's going to be what will be debated, because in essence, this lawsuit would in fact take away that, again, in terms of the arbitration, it would take that away. And so
I do see where there would be, what do you call it, a new insurance created for something like that as well, where, because I was even reading earlier today, this is a little off topic, but I was reading like the upcoming cybersecurity, like this list of 20 top cybersecurity startup firms, and one of them is a cybersecurity insurance, or a cyber insurance company that's like, a couple $100 million in valuation. And all they do is provide insurance if somebody hacks your company, So so I could see that as well.
The power of capitalism. Yes. Solve the business problem and definitely
there would be an e-commerce insurance, to protect you.
Yes.
So Jen is asking here, could that backfire on states? Company just won't set up business there.
And that's another unintended consequence.
It's possible, but I do think, again, with the e-com, if you're trying to sell across the country, then that could potentially be a problem.
So, and that's what we see across the board with policy, whether you're making policy through the courts or through legislation. It goes in with one intent, but the consequences and the unintended consequences always manifest itself. So yes.
One thing before you get started, all of my people in YouTube, I got 12 people watching. I don't have enough likes. Please like the video, and please share the video, share this information. All right, Dr. Cheri, tell us what else we got.
We've got the auto industry is embracing electricity. At the 2022 North American International Auto Show in Detroit this past September, last month. Industry leaders, the mayor and the governor have emphasized that there's a shift in the auto industry away from fossil fuel and towards electricity as the driving engine, pun intended, for production and manufacturing. This, again, is due in part to President Biden's energy policy that I mentioned at the monthly meeting for those who are subscribers. So again, President Biden creates this energy policy and says that he's going to, dedicate billions of dollars towards funding that policy. And so that's creating the shift for the auto industry to say, okay, now we're going to start looking at ways to manufacture electric vehicles, and then providing that, that's caused them to get on board with changing how they manufacture. What does that mean for us? Think about the supply chain. Plug into the supply chain. Infrastructure
or invest
not,
in the supply chain.
or invest. Plug in
Yes.
or invest.
Yes.
And it's being built as we speak. It's being built as we speak. Everything from the technology in terms of the chips to just all the way through. Just think about what it takes to build a car, and not just the direct manufacture, but all of the support that goes into, the products and services that would be needed in order to make the final product.
Yeah.
So the intermediary products as well, and services as well. So think through that process. There are billions of dollars that have been earmarked, that are being earmarked for this initiative. Again, if those of you who were not part of last month's call, sign up so that you can hear that and have more information as far as how that is an opportunity, again, either to plug in or to invest.
Yeah. And so everybody, grant writers, proposal writers, salespeople, if you're looking for employment in this industry, it's going to be wide open all the way to investing. And you may not need to invest in individual stocks. Sometimes there are ETFs for these things, or mutual funds. I'm not giving investment advice. So I'm going to say do your own research with regards to how you decide to do this. But Dr. Cheri is right. There's a lot of opportunity within here to get active income as well as passive income and appreciating income over time. Because I would imagine if you are an investor, let's say that you invest directly into a company, I would imagine that's a lot of recurring revenue because people would need their, their charging done all the time.
Yes.
So
yes.
So let me ask you a question because I don't know much about the mechanics of EV. How does the charging station actually get the electricity? And the reason I'm asking is I wonder if it's solar, just because is it solar or is it some other way? Or is somebody saying the batteries?
Yeah, there's a battery cell,
Okay.
a battery pack cell. And I'm not sure how that works. I just know that when you are charging, you're charging actually that battery pack.
Okay. So then now, because now I think about it, because of Tesla, they have some special battery. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You're charging.
Can I divert for a second? I did see that on CNN, there was a story of a town in Florida that did not lose power because they are 100% powered by solar. So if anybody is in solar or you want to make good money, Robin Mansell does solar sales. So if you all are in with the 10K project, you know who she is. She does our business buying classes. So definitely talk with her, because after reading that story, I thought, oh my goodness, there's probably going to be a boom in people who want to buy solar. So definitely check that out. So go ahead. We're giving y'all lots of money making here, lots of money making.
Okay, so we're going to talk about economic recession again. And again, I'm going to tell you to the investors, do not panic. because the market has dropped recently and has been falling recently. Yes, the market does that. The market will rebound. The market corrects itself when it goes too far to, too low or too high, it corrects itself. This is the nature of the market. So if you're looking at your investments and your portfolios, your retirement portfolios, and you're just panicking, wait. It will turn around soon. Now, soon, I can't tell you when soon. I just can tell you that it will eventually turn around. So don't panic. It's going to be okay. Bear market, if you're listening to different stock markets, you're going to hear the term bear market as opposed to bull market. Bear market is when the security prices slide by 20% or more for multiple, technically for multiple months, but we're hearing it now, not because it's been multiple months, but because it's sliding more than 20% in a fairly short amount of time. And so you're going to hear phrases like we're in a bear market. And then you're going to hear panic because we're trying to, we're arguing and debating whether or not we're in a recession, headed to a recession. And so you've got, we're either in a recession, technically we would be, because by definition, you need 2 consecutive quarters of decreasing economic activity. That's the GDP. And so you've got the technical recession, then you've got security prices falling by 20% or more. Then you've got inflation. You still have supply chain issues. And then you have interest rates increasing. So you've got all of this like a groundswell, if you will, happening all at the same time. And it's creating havoc and panic on Wall Street in the business sector, because despite business being unpredictable, Wall Street likes predictability. And if they can't get predictability, then they are looking for leadership. And so you're going to hear bear market. Bear market just means that the securities prices have dropped 20% or more, typically over a few months. But in this case, we're hearing it now because of all the other things that are going on that are help contributing to it.
So when you say leadership, is that presidential? Is that economic? Like, what do you mean by leadership?
Both. They're looking for leadership, whether the leadership comes from the executive branch and there's executive orders, whether it's coming from the legislative branch and there are passages of bills into laws that are business friendly, or even if it is leadership within the business community where you hear industry leaders saying, okay, this is the route we're going to take. Mm-hmm. If they don't hear leadership from government, because remember, in economics, in macroeconomics, and Kevin, I saw your answer and I'll answer that shortly. In economics, when we talk about the economic actors, you have government, you have the business sector, and you have the household or the consumer sector. And so when the business sector is wonky, for lack of a better word, and that is the fact that which is what's going on right now, this unpredictability, because we've got the bear market thing, debate, and we've got the recession debate, and we've got interest rates and inflation and supply chain. And so everything is kind of chaotic. And so the business community will look to the government and say, okay, what are y'all going to do that's going to help us get stable? And if the business sector does not get that leadership from either the executive or the legislative branch, then someone or someone's within different industries will then step up and say, well, since we can't depend on them, this is what we're going to do, and then move, and then everybody kind of follows in suit. So
you're kind of saying a lot of subliminal stuff. Let me just say it plainly from what I'm hearing. Biden administration doesn't seem to have a plan. Nancy and Chuck and them are
Can't
trying
get
to
it
save their
done.
seats. They can't get it together. I have not heard any business leaders, not even a Warren Buffett, come out and say anything
Right.
remotely that's telling me that they have any faith. In fact, I was reading an article that said that that analysts now with these predictive models are expecting first of all, they're trying to get inflation to 2%. Let me know if I'm busting any of your bubble with regards to some of the things you want to talk about. But it said that they are trying to get inflation down to 2%, and they're calculating that it will not get there until the end of 2023. So they are predicting 17 months of recession.
Yes.
So let's just call it what it is.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Which is going to be interesting because I think it may impact the 2024 election as well.
That's it. That's
Mhm.
it. That's why we don't want it, why you're not seeing leadership right now. Because,
Well, and I
and
think you
especially
should
from the
see it.
business, especially from the business community,
Yes, that would make
because
sense. Because
because
they
we're
want to
going,
swing whatever way is going to win. You
whoever's
know,
going to
whether
win.
it's DeSantis or
Mhm.
I don't know, Trump is 50-50 for running
Mhm.
again. There may be 18 guys.
Mhm.
I'm being sexist here, you know, saying,
Yes,
hey,
yes,
I'm
but
running. Yeah.
at least 18 or 20 candidates, depending upon whether or not he steps into the ring.
Yeah.
You've got the politicians that are um, they don't want to add this onto the plate of
Mm-hmm.
issues to discuss
Mm-hmm.
going into the midterms and
Mm-hmm.
going into this next round of elections. And so that's why you don't see leadership from the government sector, because
Mm-hmm.
we're entering into an election cycle, and
Yeah.
there are other things that that we can talk about that's within our wheelhouse and within our something that we can impact like right now,
Yeah.
because anything that Congress would implement at this stage, you won't see the result of it till after election,
Yes.
because
Not
it
only
is,
after midterm, probably
yeah,
after the presidential election. The final
exactly.
thing that I will say, and then I'll definitely toss it back over to you, is there's another article that I read that said that 70%, so 70% of Americans are looking for part-time jobs or second jobs or starting businesses because the inflation is so bad that they don't have the money to keep up. So just kind of keeping that in mind as well as we're
Mhm,
walking through
mhm.
um, navigating our money.
Yes.
So,
Yes, and the interest rates, again, we're waiting to hear back on whether or not the interest rates will be increased yet again.
mhm,
And while, we're focusing on, in terms of household, we would focus on, well, interest rates. I mean, inflation is more important, is more impactful to me than interest rates, because, I'm not borrowing money for a car, I'm not borrowing money for a house,
mhm,
but I do go to the grocery store. But what I want you all to think through is that, yes, you might not be borrowing for a car, you might not be borrowing to buy a home, but it's still important to be mindful of the impact the interest rates have, because as the Federal Reserve keeps raising the interest rates, again, remember I told you that the reason why they're doing that is because as they raise the interest rates, what the thought is, what economic principle says is that if the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, then you will want to hold on to your money, save your money, and not spend it. And because you're not spending it, that means there's less dollars circulating in the economy, prices will fall. And then that's deflation. That's how you solve inflation. That's how you bring the prices down. But what they're finding is that, yes, that's happening, that as they're raising the interest rates, people are beginning to not spend as much. And it's not so much that you are not spending as much. You are strategic about what you're spending it on. And so, which is why when the Federal Reserve initially started raising interest rates, they didn't see much impact. They were expecting to see more impact. But what we've done is, as households do, we adjust and we adapt. We adjust and we adapt. And we do so because the expectation is this is not going to last very long. Now, there's been some unintended consequences with this, not nationally, locally, but internationally. So when the interest rates went up and everybody started holding on to US dollars, it increased the value of the US dollar globally. So other countries that had other currencies are going to exchange their currencies for US dollars because US dollars now is worth more and has a higher value. And so what's ended up happening is currencies that were stronger, more valuable than the US dollar, now that the dollar has gained strength or become more valuable, now we're seeing this change. So for example, the US dollar is strong or has gained value, increased value against the euro, and it's almost a 1-for-1. In fact, right before I jumped on, I went to the currency exchange to see what it was, and US dollar is the equivalent of 1.02 euros. One US dollar week before last, the US dollar was 1-to-1 for British sterling pound, which was unheard of for the last at least 10, 15 years. The British sterling pound was more valuable than US dollar. Today, the US dollar, the sterling pound is like 88 cents, 88 to, so because we're holding on to the money, we're holding on to our money, or households, lower socioeconomic households are being more strategic about what they're spending and when they're spending, it's increased the value of the US dollar, which is, again, if you're saving, that's good news. If you're investing, that's good news. If you're consuming, not so much. But, and especially because it's global. Now, here's an issue. The US dollar is increased value against these other currencies. From the other currencies' perspective, that's not a good thing. And so they're going to have to decide, are we going to raise our interest rates so that the value of our currency increases? But if in doing so, what that will ultimately do is slow the economy, the global economy. So whereas you've got 1 or 2 countries that are operating in a recession, now the whole world is going to be in a recession. And we've had that happen a few years ago, about 15 plus years ago. It's very, very difficult. When you have a global recession, it is extremely difficult to get out. Not that you won't get out of, but it's extremely difficult to do so. And it requires some coordination. And so be on the lookout for that as well. Let's see. Next is student loans. We were so excited. And it looked like things were chugging along. And then the opposing party comes in and says, you know what? I don't think it's a good idea for us to just kind of wipe the slate clean for individuals who have student loans. And so
let's not just blame it on the Republicans now. Come on.
No.
There is plenty of blame to go around with these people in Washington, D.C.
Yes. So while we have that going on, you also have internal bickering among the Democrats. which makes it, so when you've got internal bickering, you've got direct opposition. Yeah. So what I will tell.
So what happens is the regular American gets screwed.
Yes.
Versus if everybody who had an outstanding loan was just taken care of for their $10,000, you didn't even have to do the tiered system. You could have just said, if you have, send in your paperwork and we'll cut the check to whomever it needs to go to. That would have been a better way to do it. They screwed this up, and it may cost them in 2024. I'm going to call
Yes.
it right now.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. Again, think about where this is coming from. Why all of a sudden, if we campaigned on this, why now are we fighting about this? And then why do we have the opposition that we do? We have lobbyists who are advocating and think through those companies who would suffer if this were to
Well, yeah, they would lose tens of thousands of dollars in interest. Yeah,
Yes. And
So
there's banks that would lose
Mhm.
money, and they have advocated through their lobbyists, this is going to hurt us. And if this hurts us, this is going to hurt you,
Mhm.
through politicians. And so, I mean, again, the blame goes
If
across
this
the
hurts
board.
us, it's going to hurt you more.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, yeah, we know that we campaigned on this, but this is, things
Yeah.
happen, and, each party is going to blame the other.
Mhm.
Both
So
of them.
I want to suggest a book to people. It's The Richest Man in Babylon. If you all have not read that book, it's definitely a suggested reading. This is what they talk about. They talk about being on the lender side, because then you're able to get the interest from people. And that is why, Jewish businesses do very well, because they tend to be the bankers in society, and the bankers tend to be some of the richest people that are out there. That's why Wall Street is so rich,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So definitely, looking at that, that's also why people suggest the first thing you do instead of investing is pay off your debt, because it
Yes.
kind of protects you from this fluctuation up and down. So look,
Get
go ahead. Sorry.
reach out to those of us who have student loans. Reach out to your service provider. Get that paperwork in, because we don't want what happened to us with the PPP program. We don't want that to happen to us with the student loans. A lot of small businesses, a lot of us could not take advantage of that because we didn't have our documentation in place.
Yeah.
Get your documentation.
The website isn't up yet, is it? Because I was looking and it said that it's going to be a couple more weeks for it to be up. So as soon as it goes up, we'll definitely let people know. If you were on our email list, you got to be on our email list. So come to the10kproject.com and sign up for any of those events, and you should get on our email list that way. Yeah. Definitely.
Finally.
But Talicia's saying the application is not available, but the website is active. That's what I had read yesterday. So yeah. So and people were suggesting to get on the on their email list as well, because they're supposed to let everybody know as soon as that application is up. Virginia's saying, and check out Capital Trades to see where they make their money. Y'all know about Capital Trades. So yeah, Nancy and her husband, Paul Pelosi, see what they're putting their money into.
Yeah. Now,
can I just say one thing, just as like a total? So I belong to this group, and they bring in different people who are pretty powerful business owners. And one of like a huge moneymaker that I heard about years ago were the student loan debt collectors. They make a ton of money because, they try to get people out of default and back into paying their student loans. So if you all are looking for a good business idea, especially if you have the capital to do it, because you do have to have some upfront capital for your customer service people. So just that's a moneymaker for you there.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And I just saw a comment that I wanted to I wanted to, and I'll come back to it. The final thing that I'm going to talk to you all about is how cities are beginning to repurpose commercial buildings. So remember, height of the pandemic, everybody went home to work. Those of us who were able to, we went home to work. That left all of those commercial buildings, office space, just vacant. And vacant office buildings tend to depreciate in value. And if you have investments that have commercial real estate as a part of the package, you saw a little bit of a decrease as a result of that. And then you just have just the idea of having all of these empty buildings is not good for any community. And so I mentioned this last month in the monthly update, New York City, but then since then, San Francisco just added on to their election a referendum that would allow them to do this. So basically what is happening is that these cities are saying, okay, listen, let's take some of these buildings, buy them from whomever, or lease them out, or however they make that work. But access these buildings and retrofit them to for small living spaces so that we can have affordable housing. This would be a way to address the housing issues that we would have. Yes. And especially in cities like New York City, San Francisco, and other cities will eventually, depending upon how successful this pilot programs are, then you might see this across the board. But basically what you're looking at is we're taking a vacant office building, and with New York City, they're creating like mini apartments on the floors. Now, some have said, well, how do you do, the plumbing and all of that? And it was like, well, you keep, it'll be communal baths. Yes. Which is what you see a lot of in Europe and some other countries, not necessarily here in the US, but it was like trying to take that idea, bring it to see how successful it would be here in the US. How does that help us? If you invest in REITs, if you invest in commercial real estate, there's potential there.
I think it's going to be the housing type of the future, or one of them. So housing is not going to go down, or if it goes down, it's not going to go down very long. There's going to come a time, people are estimating, where the regular schmegular person, middle class person, is not going to be able to afford a home. So one of the things that I've been seeing two things. Number one is the tiny homes, the rise of the tiny homes, right? Or people buying land lots and putting mobile homes on there. And then third, I think, is this, they call them SROs, single resident occupancy. These were very popular from the movies I saw when Vietnam veterans came home. That was very popular, that some of them didn't have families, so they would stay in these SROs together. So just to let everybody know, we actually are going to have a masterclass around this in, I think it's the latter part of November and then early December, for everybody who wants to know about that. Tammy's also saying container homes as well. Yeah, so I believe that we should, as investors, be paying close attention to this as a trend. If New York and San Francisco does well, and Lord knows both of those cities need to deal with their homeless issues, if this does well, it would not surprise me if this rolls out nationwide. Because they have to deal with this affordable housing issue somewhere, because it's starting to become a nuisance to everyday people. And eventually, Karens across the nation are going to get sick and fed up of seeing it all around them and say, deal with this one way or another. So I do think that, again, we as investors should be paying attention to this as a potential opportunity.
Yes. Now there's also, although they're looking at this from a affordable housing standpoint, not just in terms of homelessness, but think also again, land is a finite resource. And once it's bought up or reserved, government reserves certain spots for like green space and national parks and things like that, there's just so much land you can have.
Yeah.
And when your population is increasing or migrates from one geographic region to another geographic region, everybody's not going to be able to get a house. And we see this is the model that New York City and San Francisco are using. But then in Florida, they are, you have corporations that are buying up and then extending 99-year leases. So there is this trend within the industry where everybody, just because you want to own, doesn't necessarily mean you are able to own.
Right.
And so here, if everybody can't own, then we still need to provide some form of affordable housing. Florida is corporate owned housing with leases, long-term leases. It could also be, you can own the physical structure of your house, you just don't own the land. Or in this case, New York and San Francisco are saying, okay, well, let's just, instead of trying to promote home ownership, let's just promote rental. So we have to think about those things as well.
Yeah. Well, New York is a rental city anyway, so that's not so far for
it's
people.
not a far stretch.
But yeah, so Talisha is also putting our Facebook in here to join the conversation. Virginia, yes, there are Karens, but Karens come in all ethnicities. So, Sauda's saying, I get corporate requests for purchase of my family farm in Florida. Hold on. I cannot say this enough. Hold on to your property. Do not sell.
Do not sell it, because I promise you, once you sell it, you will not
never get it back. You will never get it back.
All they're going to do is take it, chop it up, and then make it unaffordable.
Yes. We have a woman coming on in a few weeks who actually bought 244 acres of land. And she's going to talk about how they are going to develop it, their revenue streams of income. We're going to be talking about this. Also, Talisha's here. She could talk to everybody about tokenization of assets, which is forthcoming, where we'll be able to buy land and then fractionalize it. Perhaps Talisha can come on one day. I'll talk with her to talk specifically about what that's going to look like. But in terms of your family being able to purchase land, I don't know how many years you got left, but it's closing, and it's either you're going to have to make more money, a lot more money, or, you're going to have to get in pretty soon. So Sauda said they don't have enough money to buy from us. Amen, sister.
Exactly.
Not enough money.
There's not enough.
Especially if you own that land outright, then you and your family, anytime. I feel like once my home is paid, as long as I pay the property taxes, nobody can put me out. That's my security blanket when I'm 80, 85, 90 years old. Imagine how many elderly people don't have that because they didn't buy when they were 30, 40, And when Big Mama dies, do not let them buy that property either. Don't let them do it.
Don't let them sell it.
Yeah.
Kevin asked the question about best books or publications to read to educate yourself on macroeconomics. There are several out there. If you are trying to just understand basic concepts and basic principles, then I would recommend getting a textbook. There are several out there textbooks that are out there. Your average undergraduate college textbook would do the trick. When I teach economics, I use Gregory Mankiw, and that's Mankiw. I teach from his book. because it's simple. It's easy to digest the concepts, and he has one book that talks about microeconomics, which is industry and business and individual household. And then he has one that's macro, which are the three economic actors: government, government, national and international households, and then business, and how the three of those intersect. So if you're just wanting basic principles, basic understanding of concepts for macroeconomics, I would just say get a textbook. And then because the principles, economic principles don't change. How they manifest themselves change. So recession is still recession no matter when it happens. The consequences of recession may differ because we react to it differently. But what causes a recession doesn't change. What causes inflation doesn't change. What causes economic booms? Those principles, those concepts don't change. It's just how we interpret them and how we behave and react towards them. So the best would be just to get a textbook that would explain that out.
Great. Do you have any other economic information for us?
I think that's enough for tonight. I don't have anything other than those things. Oh, well, I take that back. There's one other thing. Again, going back to the Supreme Court, there is, and this may not sound like business related, but I'll circle back and explain how it impacts business. So the Supreme Court is also going to listen to hear a case that is going to challenge affirmative action programs. And the affirmative action programs that they are targeting specifically are what is called race-conscious admissions at Harvard and at the University of North Carolina. And basically, those two, they're the two that are in their admissions process. They make efforts, conscious efforts, to ensure that within each entering class, they make sure that they pull underrepresented minorities. And so the lawsuit is saying that this is unconstitutional. Yeah. It is discriminatory, and so they're fighting against it. Now, here is where the business part comes in. Apple, GM, Google, Meta, and Starbucks have all filed briefs supporting Harvard and the University of North Carolina's program, the way that they're doing it. So they're saying this should stay in place. And the reason why they said that it should stay in place is because they said that if the Supreme Court rules against it, it would significantly impact their ability to hire underrepresented racial minority employees.
Very interesting, because, okay, so let's dig into that for a second here. It's my understanding that a lot of these big companies, specifically Google and Meta, are moving away from college degrees and moving towards certifications. If you've got certain certifications, you can get in entry level, work your way up, that way. Who are they still looking to recruit that would, are they looking for executives from Harvard? And okay, I got it. Now, I know this is really, let's call a spade a spade. This is really Asian people against Black people,
and that's the actual lawsuit. The actual lawsuit was an Asian student that said they could not, they were trying to get into Harvard, and said that they couldn't get into Harvard because a Black student took their place.
Yes. So I have so many feelings with regards to this. as somebody who was led into a good school, they were trying to have racial diversity, blah, blah, blah. But not that I didn't have good enough grades and SATs, et cetera, to get in. I do think that we as Black people need to fight harder for our students to get the support that they need in pre-K through 12. I do think that Asian students are right in that in that there are certain schools within our neighborhoods that are not prepping our students properly to go into some of these Ivy League higher institutions.
Right.
One more thing before you speak.
Yeah.
I also think that we as a culture need to focus more on our studies and less on some of the other things that we're doing. We are too heavily into celebrity gossip and social media and things like that. So I see this as, and this may not be the popular thing to say, I see this as partially, the Asian students saying, our priorities are correct and we're here to compete. And long term, I do want to see, I know Black people can do it. It's not that we can't do it, but I do wonder about, especially, so I don't know this to be true. I do hear certain Republican pundits say that when our students go into these Ivy League institutions, that sometimes they have harder trouble than other students. So if anybody knows about that, we could talk about that too.
I would say this. So there's several things at play. First, for the Asian student to say, that's my slot that was taken, there's that entitlement with that.
Yes.
Then we also think about the whole purpose of the affirmative action was to level the playing field for Blacks, although unintended consequences.
Everybody got included.
Everybody gets included, but Blacks.
Yes.
In terms of Blacks not being prepared, Black students typically go to public schools, which are woefully underfunded. And so if you have underfunded facilities, then of course they're not going to be, and you have underfunded facilities, and schools teach what is tested.
That is true.
So if you are underfunded and your priority is to teach what is tested, then you're going to get some gaps.
Yep.
So,
and there was a fraud case in Georgia. I want to say it was Atlanta a few years ago, where they were just changing student answers to pass them. But the problem is that they're incentivized and their raises come because of that, versus us really looking at how students learn. And the truth is, girls learn differently from boys, and Black girls learn differently Black boys learn differently from other ethnic male groups as well. So we're
not putting the investments in
and creating a truly cultural, when I say cultural, I don't mean African American studies, I mean cultural lesson plan for these young people. And mom, if she's stressed out, she's trying to work 2 jobs, she's trying to keep a roof over the kids' heads, sometimes she doesn't have the capacity to do all of the things that need to be done. So I think that there's just a lot here. Now I will say, somebody kind of mentioned it, but I will say that I know that the legacy students, because somebody said, well, how do they know they took, the Black kid took his place versus one of the white kids? Those legacy students, is a huge
automatically.
problem as well, but I think that
Yes.
we're the lower hanging fruit. Let's
Yes,
be real.
exactly. And
We're the lower
honestly,
hanging fruit.
that was it. And when I
Hmm.
saw that, that was my thing was, you're not going, if you were going to target someone, you should have targeted the legacy students who did not make the cut other than their legacy.
Hmm.
But again, Blacks are the low hanging fruit. But then also this, for me, presents an opportunity for HBCUs.
I like that. Talk,
I would,
especially with Deion Sanders and what
I
he's
would
doing. Talk about
love,
that.
because here's the deal. When you think about your Googles and your Metas,
Hmm.
they have direct pipelines into the, Columbia,
Hmm.
NYU, Harvard. They have pipelines. They have recruiters that actually have offices there, and
Hmm.
they, internships, externships, jobs that I'm only going to recruit out of Harvard. I'm only going to
Hmm.
recruit out of Boston College. I'm only going to recruit out of certain schools. But if the true, which, I have a whole thing about the whole DEI, that's another story for another time. But these companies that claim that they want diversity
Hmm.
need only go to an HBCU. Go to an HBCU or the other minority serving
Hmm.
institutions.
Institutions. Yeah. Well,
And if you
okay.
don't like
So
what you see,
yeah,
then get
then
with
look
those
someplace else.
programs and
Yeah.
help develop those programs. So
Yeah.
then you create the pipeline you want to see.
Yeah. So I will say one more thing, and this is going back to Harvard itself and those types of institutions. I think it's important for those students to be in the Asian and the white students to also be in a class with Black students as well. There is a statistic that says that diverse companies make like 47% more in profit,
Mhm,
47% more in
mhm.
profit than non-diverse. But
Exactly.
if you have white and Asian students that have not gone to grade school with Black people, I'm gonna say Black people and not Black and brown for this,
No.
Black people specifically, they haven't gone to grade school. When they went to high school, the only people that they were sitting beside were the athletes
Mhm,
and not their academic peers.
mhm.
Then they go to undergrad and then they go to MBA, and they've never seen a Black person in sight
It is
that is
possible.
on their academic level.
Yep.
They go into corporate America thinking
Thinking
Black people can't
hard.
do what we do.
Exactly. Exactly.
So we'll
Exactly.
hire them to do lower level stuff, but we'll never
Exactly.
promote them. So I
Exactly.
do think, yes, HBCUs, I wholeheartedly
Okay.
agree we should have those
Pipelines.
programs and those. And I think that some of them are starting, especially Google, I think is starting to develop the pipeline directly into the HBCUs because the HBCUs produce more science and math graduates than like PWIs, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
I totally disagree with let's not have the Black students go there at all
Oh, no, no, no.
because,
They need
and,
to,
and I'm
they
not
need to
saying
be
that you
there.
did.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
saying for
They need,
them,
we need,
yeah.
it's not an either or, it's an and
No,
both.
it's a both. Yeah,
It's an
because
and both.
that will cause more of a problem from a Black income and Black wealth point of view long
Exactly.
term if there's no representation in those
Exactly.
classes. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, anything else?
That's it for this installment, this quarterly
Okay.
installment.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, look,
Yeah.
I think we should have a conversation at some point just on that case because
Yes.
I would love to kind of open up the phone lines, have people call in, give their points of view. All of this affects Black wealth because
Yes.
if we do not make enough income, if we're underpaid, if we don't get access to these opportunities, you can't build wealth without income. I know a whole lot of people saying, buy XYZ asset, no money down. At some point, you're going to have money to do something. So
Exactly.
I,
Exactly.
I would like us to have some of these conversations and spirited debates as well. You know,
Let's get it on the calendar.
the10kproject.com if you all want to join the 10K project. And yeah, let's do this at another point. Let's have this conversation and open up the phone lines.
Absolutely. All right.
All righty then, everybody. Well, y'all got your money's worth today because Dr. Cheri came in and she definitely told us all the things that we need to know, or a lot of the things we need to know with regards to the economy. So definitely go back, re-listen to this. If you haven't taken notes, make sure that you take notes with regards to just the things to research, see what kind of investments you want to do, see what you want to have on your radar, get your money up. And, you know, that's it. Thank you so much, Dr. Cheri.
Thank you all for this opportunity. Looking forward to next quarter's report or next month if you're a subscriber.
Yes, absolutely. Take care, everybody.